the wisdom of generations of women to help you have more joy every day. The Wisdom Coalition program begins right now.
People tend to think that vulnerability means being weak, it means exposing the dark sides of yourself, and so it's not really encouraged.
It's okay to be vulnerable, and there's a freedom that comes with just being able to embrace it as opposed to being able to hide it. And I think with that, the shame goes away.
The roadblocks of vulnerability and shame.
Welcome to the Wisdom Coalition program. I'm Nancy Wertine.
And I'm Kim Howie. Thanks for joining us.
Being vulnerable is something that can make many of us uncomfortable.
And experts say that fear of vulnerability actually steals our joy and holds us back in life.
But they add that if we can overcome that fear, it's better for everyone. It's an idea that some people are trying to promote one success story at a time.
Karen Finocchio puts her whole self out there for the world to see. She calls herself simply One Tough Mother, a name she designed after starting an advice column described as Dear Abby on steroids. She created her OTM army, thousands of women standing up for themselves and their own bravery in the face of hard times. Karen went from a single mother of 4 children on food stamps to owning an extremely successful marketing firm. Now she's focused on her radio show and giving other women strength to love themselves and the courage to be seen for who they really are.
Karen Finocchio joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It was very nice of you.
You've said that in our weakest moments, we become the strongest, and I love that. So talk to us a little bit about how do you think that we can embrace our own vulnerability?
It's funny because I get asked that a lot, and what I found in my life, and I know a lot of women I've spoken to, is you can't become strong. You don't get strength from doing the things that you've always done. Like, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect to get stronger. You become strong and you gain strength by doing the things that you thought you couldn't do. You have to learn to overcome your fears of what's next. There is no control in life, ever. You don't have a control over the traffic, the weather, what's going to happen in the day, because we interact with so many people in so many ways. So as a result, when you have strength and confidence, you have a little bit of control over yourself. I worry about women that think that they don't have opportunities or they don't have options. That's not true. Everyone has something special in them, and everyone has an opportunity and an option to change. Your life is literally just one decision away from something else. And you need to embrace that and try those things.
I love that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So why is it, do you think, that we find it to be so difficult to share our true selves and our feelings with other people?
It's, as women, we're taught to kind of stifle things, especially our generation. And I'm finding now that since I work with so many women globally, that women are starting to come out of that shell and really push themselves forward. If not for ourselves, we need to do this for our daughters and our granddaughters, because I know a lot of women will say to me, well, I feel so broken. Well, Hemingway had this wonderful quote. He's like, everyone's broken. That's how the light gets in. Because that's what you take in. You're taking in different pieces of everybody's day and everybody's personality, and you're forming your own opinions, and you get your own strength from that. I find that I push myself to do things like that I don't want to do. Like, there's a ride in Dorney Park that my grandsons want me to ride. When I saw it on YouTube, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for them.
When you talk about, when we talk about vulnerability, do you think sometimes that it's a self-confidence issue? Another quote that you have that I love is, failure is an incident, not a tattoo. So are we sometimes so afraid of maybe making a mistake or being seen as unworthy or not likable that we're afraid to kind of let that real self come out there?
I think without a doubt. I think that fear and being afraid of failure is such a powerful thing, and you've got to realize the most powerful people in the world have failed millions and millions of times. Michael Jordan had a quote that he said if he'd have stopped shooting baskets after I don't know how many he'd never made, he wouldn't be Michael Jordan. What you have to learn is you are going to fall. Life is tough. You're going to fall, and you've got to pick yourself up and just keep going at it. If you fall and stay down, then that's a failure. That's a failure. But if you fall and pull yourself back up and keep trying, you're going to get so much further in life. And it can be little things, just little things like if you're afraid to drive the highway, or you're afraid of anything small. Every little piece of confidence that you build in yourself, every little thing that you overcome makes you that much stronger.
And how do we support each other as far as vulnerability is concerned?
And I love this part because I found this in my Tough Mother community. I have the Tough Mother Army. And women have become so supportive of each other, where they used to be not so supportive of each other. And the more you support each other, the better you get, personally. The more you support your sister, your cousin, your friend, anybody in your workplace, the better you become. And it makes you feel better about yourself. You're only your happiest when you're making other people happy. Laugh or smile, you're your happiest.
I like that. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. Stay with us because we'll have you back in just a few moments.
Thank you both.
But first, some more reflections on this topic from our well of wisdom.
I have people coming up to me like they don't want to talk to me because I represent something a little unapproachable, but when they talk to me and they see that I am so real and that I am very down to earth, that I'm not pretending nothing that I'm not, so they switch the thought immediately.
Welcome back. Our next guest is Caitlin Campanella. She is a licensed professional counselor for Bethlehem Counseling Associates. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You know, according to shame researcher Brene Brown, being vulnerable means showing up and letting our true selves be seen. But why is that so difficult for many of us?
That's a great question. Vulnerability can be so difficult for many of us because vulnerability is inherently letting ourselves be emotionally shown to other people. And by letting them see that emotional side to us, we're giving them the opportunity or the potential to potentially judge us or hurt us at some point if we become too emotionally connected to them, and then unfortunately they let us down.
And how about social media? I mean, what role does that play? It's hard to be vulnerable and put yourself out there when you look on social media and everybody else's lives look so perfect.
Absolutely. That's something that I hear so often from my clients, that they're on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, any type of social media. And what you're getting on social media, what you're seeing is these carefully curated, filtered aspects of people's lives. They're showing you what they want you to see. So it's extraordinarily difficult for somebody to be vulnerable when they falsely believe that everybody around them is living these so-called perfect lives.
When you said that vulnerability is tied into fear of being, I guess, judged, right, or hurt by someone else, so that can be really paralyzing then, can it? Because if we're so afraid of that and then we hide our true selves, I mean, that's got to be paralyzing and keep us kind of jilted or stilted in the place that we are. Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So that fear of vulnerability can really prevent us from reaching our full potential when it comes to developing and maintaining fulfilling relationships and friendships. So it can go either way. Either you can isolate yourself and not make any friends, not open yourself up to relationships, or even if you do have friends and relationships, you may not be able to fully break down that wall and experience that friendship or relationship to its fullest potential or extent.
And what about shame? I mean, researchers say that shame is actually the fear of being disconnected from people, you know, that others will think that we're unworthy of loving and belonging, and also that shame is highly correlated with things like addiction and depression and eating disorders. Do you see that a lot in your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I had a long-term client admit to me that she wanted to be in a romantic relationship and that she was lonely. But the amount of shame and embarrassment and guilt that she was giving off was just overwhelming, all over something that's a completely normal human desire and need. But many people believe that through admitting that they're lonely and would like a romantic relationship, that shows an emotional, vulnerable side to them, which many of us are uncomfortable with.
So tell us about how that vulnerability ties into shame.
Well, vulnerability and shame often go hand in hand because when we feel vulnerable, we often are taught by society or taught by example through the people around us that showing that vulnerability is a bad thing, that we shouldn't show our emotions, that our emotions are negative and bad and we should not be expressing them. So when we do end up showing that vulnerability, there can often be a lot of shame associated with it.
Thank you so much for being with us, Caitlin. But stay put because you'll be joining us in just a few moments.
But you can go to our website, thewisdomcoalition.com, and join the conversation online. We'd love to hear from you.
As women, unfortunately, we have this tendency to think that we have to have everything together, you know, and can't really express the fact that we're hurting or that we're weak or that we need help. And that's one thing I hate about that shame part, because it prevents us from being able to just open up and say, hey, help me.
Welcome back. Caitlin and Karen join us once again, and we're talking about vulnerability and shame. So I wanted to talk a little bit about shame researcher Brene Brown. And she says that there are 12 shame categories that hold us back: appearance and body image, money and work, motherhood, fatherhood, family, parenting, mental and physical health, addiction, sex, aging, and religion. So that's a pretty long list. And you know, who among us is not touched by one of those subjects? So talk a little bit about that. How can we put that shame aside in our lives?
Well, as a licensed professional counselor, something that I feel is essential to educate my clients on is the difference between being a bad person and being a good person who has maybe done a bad thing. So often, many people who have made a mistake, as we all have at some point in our lives, really internalize that mistake, and they see it as being part of who they are as an individual, who they are at their core. So I really attempt to help them process the mistake as something to learn from and hopefully not do again, instead of utilizing that mistake to identify themselves.
That's a great distinction to make, yeah. And you know, experts say that we cannot have intimacy without vulnerability. So Karen, can you share some practical tips of ways that we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable?
You have to remember that as you speak to yourself, whether you're in a car, wherever you are, even just in the grocery store, what you're telling yourself is what you're processing. It becomes part of your fabric and who you are. So tell yourself positive things. Listen to positive tapes. Go online, listen to positive speeches. What happens is when you start listening to them, you become, and I hate to say brainwashed, but you take that stance. And by listening to positive things and surrounding yourself with positive things, you're more positive person. The things that you worry about, the things that you think about and dwell on, and you feel ashamed of or you feel upset about, those things half the time are not even what's happening, not even what's going on. You seem to focus on things that maybe some people don't even know. So just bring yourself out of that. Be positive with yourself. It makes a huge difference. Love yourself like you would your partner, your family, your friends.
Well, that's exactly what we talk about at the Wisdom Coalition all the time, is to be more positive in our thoughts. Did you have anything to add, Caitlin, as far as practical tips?
Yeah, so what I like to tell people who are struggling with being vulnerable is to think about the relationships that you have in your life, such as with your best friend or your significant other, where you are more vulnerable. And that's probably more of who you actually are, your authentic self. So incorporating aspects of that authenticity into other relationships in your life can be a great exercise in practicing that vulnerability outside of the more comfortable relationships in your life.
And you know, when we talk about shame, we talk about mushroom topics at the Wisdom Coalition all the time, and shame fits into that, you know, something that grows when you keep it in the dark, right? So adding light to it is helpful. Do you have any other tips about how you might bring things like shame and other mushroom topics to light?
Welcoming people who are vulnerable or who are showing emotion around you and having them open up to you can be very powerful in making yourself more comfortable opening up to some of that vulnerability and emotion as well. That reciprocal relationship is how friendships and relationships are really built.
And that's really what you do with One Tough Mother, isn't it?
Exactly. These women in the Tough Mother Army, the women support each other, whether it's through breast cancer or helping with your children or answering questions about raising children, relationship issues. A lot of the women come from bad relationships. What happens is when you help each other, you help yourself. Even myself, I went through a very traumatic time, and I found that helping the women online with One Tough Mother was really healing myself, because you listen to little pieces of what you're saying and it starts to sink in, and it goes back to, again, brainwashing yourself into a positive attitude.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much. Thanks to both of you for being with us.
And we'll be right back in the kitchen.
When you live right and do take care of yourself, you don't have to worry about what others think of you. They'll be drawn to you and you to them.
It has taken me a lifetime to come to a point where I can be vulnerable, but I can see how much people soften to you when you in turn are softening to them.
Welcome back. You know, sometimes being vulnerable means doing something you're not completely comfortable with.
Oh yes, we are going to be very vulnerable today. We're going to be doing an art project, and Nancy and I are not very crafty.
Yeah, so vulnerability, here we go. So we have a special guest with us. She is Melanie Bolden, Vice President of Global Marketing for Crayola. And we invited Crayola, who better, right? The master of fun and crafty projects. So thank you for being with us.
Well, and before we get started, I want to thank the both of you for the opportunity to be on the show as well. And as you both know, at Crayola, we are all about color and interactive play. And we think that that combination together really inspires creativity. So I couldn't be more thrilled today to talk about our air marker sprayer. Not only is it fun, but you guys, it's really easy to use. And importantly, it last year was rated by the Toy Industry Association as one of the Toy of the Year.
So basically you're saying we don't have to be scared.
Not only, you do not have to be scared. This item is for kids 8+, so for the kids and the kids at heart. And it is it's a simple simple toy that really allows you self-expression. So with that, let me just tell you a little bit about what's inside of it. It's a retail package. It sells for about $29.99. Inside you have the air marker sprayer, as well as 5 pipsqueak washable markers. You have stencils as well as paper. So let's get started.
Okay, all right.
Now,
I'm excited.
The first thing you do is plug in the unit, but we've already done that, so you guys are in good shape. And you've already preloaded your marker, but just for your audience, I'll just show you how simple it is. You just put the marker in the spray nozzle, and then you turn it clockwise to make sure that the marker is secure. And we're going to start with some stencils. So if you get ready, all you do is turn on the unit, and it's pretty intuitive. The closer you are to the paper, the darker the outcome, and then the further out you go, the lighter the outcome it'll be.
Okay, this is crazy easy.
It is
really, really
super
fun.
easy.
I mean, just because it's a stencil, there's not a whole lot you can, that you can mess up, right? Yes.
You guys are doing great. Literally, you are.
Well, and I love that they're washable markers.
Yes. Well, and, I think when we think of Crayola, we think of that really fantastic box of crayons, right? But this is a really interesting project or product, and you must have multiple ones like this that are good for adults, or as you said, or kids at heart, etc.
Yeah, across our portfolio, we have a number of items that are not only good for kids, but also adults. And you guys have probably seen the craze with coloring. So over the past couple of years, there's been just this resurgence of people wanting to get back to nostalgia. I think coloring is one of those things that is so relaxing. It's a stress reliever. It's social. But also, very importantly, a lot of parents have figured out that it's a fun activity you can do with your kids. So right now, my boss always says, and he's right, creativity is cool right now. So, and it's a lot of fun. And speaking of fun, the stencils are one way you can utilize this toy. However, you can do some free-flowing as well. So fun things, depending on your artistic ability, you can write your name, draw pictures. Kim, I'm just doing your name. I'm not an artist. But it's really a lot of fun. And I'll just point your attention to some of the outcomes that we have laid out here, because these were done by our Crayola artists. So as you can tell, they're a little bit more professional and advanced than what we're able to do, but just some beautiful outcomes. And then also, you cannot, you don't have to just use the air marker sprayer on paper. As you can see, it works on a variety of surfaces like wood, canvas, as well as fabric. And I'll point your attention to the Wisdom Coalition t-shirt that our artists did for both of you. So we wanted to leave you with a little keepsake.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, they're really
amazing.
nice. Well, so you could do, I'm thinking you can make some really nice gifts, like around the holidays or that kind of a thing, you know, little memory boxes that you could put some of your own personal touch on there, right? That would be a good idea.
Absolutely. And I think that because any marker, any broadline marker that Crayola offers works with the air marker sprayer. You've got fabric that you could do it on. You can also, we have window markers, so using glass, for example, and air marker spraying on glass as well. So there's a variety of different surfaces as well as different outcomes depending on your imagination that you can do. So great giftable item as well.
And how about cleanup? How do you clean that out?
Yeah, so it's actually very simple. You just take a cloth or a paper towel and you just wipe it off, and then the markers, you know, easily come out, and then you put the cap on it, and it'll be ready for you to reuse again. So really simple and easy.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the beautiful t-shirts.
You're welcome.
Yes,
and
thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Go out and spread some joy today.